Welcome everybody. I am Dr. Ruchika Gupta, the postdoctoral fellow, Indian Institute of Technology, IIT Guwahati. I welcome you all in the last session of the day, the plenary lecture on IT plus IT equal to IT, inclusive, scalable and sustainable development for India. For this, I like to invite Ms. Sudeshna Chaudhary, the session chair for the day. Ms. Sudeshna Chaudhary is currently the head of strategy, business analytics and insight at Tata Consultancy Services. With a career in data and analytics for the last 20 years, her skills, interest, and focus is all around data and analytics and the engagement around that. She is very passionate about data for good and sustainability solutions. He is very keen on networking and collaborating on these platforms across industries and academic institutions. She is a senior IEEE member and present chair of Women in Engineering IEEE Kolkata section. She is the first chapter lead in India for Women in Data and also Asia region head for the same. Volume data being her passion since the start of her career. Her role in Women in Data gives her an opportunity to work across global and across organizations to promote involvement and networking with women in data and work towards a wider cause of data for good. She is one of the key members of organizing committee of this mega event INDICON 2021. She has been extremely helpful for organizing this conference while providing the profound interface with industry and, of course, sponsors. We welcome you, ma'am, for the session. And now I request you to chair the session. Over to you, Sudeshna ma'am.
Thank you, Ruchika. Good evening, everyone. And it is my privilege to introduce all of you to today's speaker, Mr. Dinanath Kholkar. Mr. Dinanath Kholkar is the Vice President and Global Head of Analytics and Insights, Tata Consultancy Services. He is the Chair, Industry Relations of IEEE Pune section. He is one of the Data IQ top 100 most influential people in data. He is also part of the top 100 data visionaries in hottopics.ht. And as the global head of the Analytics and Insights unit of Tata Consultancy Services, he is responsible for managing the unit P&L, formulating its strategy, and enabling clients in their journey of digital reimagination. As a data and analytics specialist who has worked closely with client business stakeholders, he believes that many organizations are yet to realize the power of their data in real-time decision-making. Over a career spanning 3 decades, Dina has held various leadership roles and delivered value in building various businesses in TCS. Overall, Dina brings a unique blend of business and operations expertise, data technologies and analytics, and has enabled build strategic partnerships with many customers and help them become industry leaders. He is passionate about making a difference in the field of education and is currently driving digital literacy initiatives in Pune. As one of the champions for diversity and inclusivity, he has led from the front on various initiatives. Notably among those are the Will Forum, running an all-women center at Riyadh, setting up global delivery centers, and supporting the Avsara Academy, a unique initiative for education of girl child. Dina, welcome to INDICON 2021, and we are all eager to listen to you. Over to you.
Thank you, Sudeshna, and thank you to the organizing committee of INDICON. It is indeed a pleasure to be here with you and sharing some of my thoughts. When I was asked about doing a plenary talk, I thought it would be good to give a perspective around the work that we are already doing, either through IEEE or through TCS or various transformative initiatives that are on in India, and then link it up to the potential that we see and the opportunities that are there ahead of us and how IEEE can play a very active role in supporting that. So let me share my, so the topic around IT plus IT equal to IT is about some things that our Prime Minister put out a few years back. he gave this mantra, which was information technology plus Indian talent is equal to India tomorrow. And over the years, we have been very closely working with, uh, the government, various transformative initiatives, and being a very prominent player in transforming in India. TCS has actively been involved in various things. But I thought, let me take a step back and look at what does this really mean, and how can we participate as individuals, as professionals, as well as what difference IEEE can make. And I wanted to give a point of view from a industry perspective. And I'll do my session in form of short stories. These are actually experiences that I have personally been involved with, or there are stories that I've heard. I have interacted with a lot of industry leaders, academia leaders, people in government, people in the administration. A very good perspective. I thought I should break it down into specific stories. And the first story I will start off with will be a little more detailed one and a deep dive one. I'm sure everybody is well aware of the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan 2014 at the Red Fort on Independence Day. Prime Minister launched this initiative, and there was a significant amount of money which got poured into transforming the entire setup related to cleanliness. The toilets program was one of the very significant one where it was mainly focused on building the infrastructure. However, once the infrastructure was built, the story doesn't end there. The story begins from there, because now we need to look at how do you maintain these toilets. And it's a very significant part of a school infrastructure. And let me tell you the work that we have been doing in Andhra Pradesh. So it's a story about a young girl who unfortunately drops out of school because once she reaches a particular age of puberty, she finds the toilets and the general infrastructure in school around sanitation not up to a mark where she can actually be comfortable going and using it. And this percentage, if you look at comparing with what this percentage was before the start of the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, it was much higher. So now at least it has come down, but it is still 23%, which is quite a significant number of dropouts. Now let's look at the scale at which we operate. And this is, as I mentioned, this is the project that we are doing with the Andhra Pradesh government. So there are 5 million school-going kids in about 45,000 government schools. And you have a complete infrastructure, be it the toilets, the classrooms, the water taps, the passages, the kitchen area, the dining area, and all of these things. So there is a lot of scope where cleanliness and sanitation has to be inspected and made up to that quality. We talked about just Andhra Pradesh. Now you think about there are 29 states and 7 union territories. So you have a scale which is quite significant, and the impact of poor sanitation. Just keep in mind the 23%. If you have 23% of girls dropping out, the scale at which they could potentially be impacted because of poor sanitation is for you to see. And then zoom it out further, you look at the world population and you look at the type of developing countries where a similar problem exists. Most of Asia, Africa, the South America continent, you absolutely have this problem. And it clearly reflects on the Sustainable Development Goals, goals number 3, 6, 4, and 10. And we felt that this particular area, we need to innovate, we need to come up with some very good ideas about how to solve this problem. What does the current setup do? Very basic things, very manual checkup of the infrastructure. And mostly the headmaster in the school or the sanitation worker or even the education welfare assistant, these are the people who are actually doing this activity of going and checking whether the cleanliness and the usability of this infrastructure is good. What are we proposing if we automate this entire setup using AI? And I'll show you the type of things that we have done. we could potentially save a significant amount of effort. There could be a significant amount of transparency. Data can be very effectively captured and then analyzed using AI and be able to very clearly tell which are the schools which are having challenges as regards their sanitation. So what's the outcome? At the end of it, while we do a lot of technology stuff, what is it that we are really looking for from a purpose point of view? Right to education is a very, very fundamental right of any child. And obviously, we want to ensure that the child continues with the education journey all throughout. So if we deployed this solution, and this, again, as I mentioned, is very specifically deployed in the state of Andhra Pradesh, we want to reduce the student dropout, and especially the girl child. What this will mean is there is an increased literacy rate, healthier children, because you have cleaner areas where they would be there. Promotes equality. Remember, these are government schools, these are not private schools, which probably many of the privileged kids go to. Reduce poverty and boost the economic growth. We actually look at the workforce that is there today, and this is a very interesting perspective that industry is looking at. Today, there is a huge talent crunch. And if we are having a 23% dropout in probably the largest volume of people that we have, we could potentially be choking us as we go forward and as the economy requires us to produce more talent to drive the growth for the country. So what are we really doing? The activity that is there, and this is the technology that we have deployed. We have obviously the groundwork around different schools, the toilets, and all those code. The actual what we call as master data has been already set in place. The simplest of things is to actually just click a picture using an app that we have developed of the areas that we want to inspect. And this data, which is in form of a photograph, is completely geocoded. You cannot tamper with it, and it gets uploaded onto cloud. And then there are various AI models which validate the quality of the particular setup. And we very clearly are able to call out that here are the areas where there are issues, and here is where sanitation needs to be uplifted. And the dashboard is completely available, transparent for anybody to look into. It's available at the government site. You can drill down at a district level to a particular school, and then actually you can look at within the school the different areas. So very clearly, this particular effort of technology being deployed is not a trivial one, but it requires a lot of effort, and that's what we have been doing. So this particular solution, when you look at what has it really done, it is relatively very simple. If you really look at from a technology point of view, a sanitation worker or a headmaster or anybody can just take a picture and that's it. It just gives you a score of how good you are. So, from a sanitation perspective, it is scalable. You can actually add more and more schools to it. It can be taken up, apart from the state of Andhra Pradesh, it can be taken to any other state in India. It can be taken up globally. Is it sustainable? Absolutely. With the type of the funding which is available, the type of change management which the government is driving in ensuring that education is available to all and things like that is absolutely a possibility. Can it be deployed in a speedy manner? Yes. All of this infrastructure is now available on cloud, and you can just get the very basics done of creating the master data and then using that coding to actually do the entire process. And it is very superior in nature because it is state of the art. The education minister, the health minister, the chief minister of Andhra Pradesh, all of them have these dashboards in which they can actually view. The headmaster, the parents, the workers who are involved, they pretty much have access to a lot of this, dashboards, and they can see how their school is doing and how are they progressing over time. So here is a simple app which is there. It is the ASI app, as we call it, automated sanitation inspection, capturing of the image. The image is then uploaded, and then you get a score. How is the quality of the overall setup, and it keeps that information so that you can actually look at how things are tracked over time. Very clearly, the impact is seen. The impact is seen in when we started this deployment. It was during the COVID times. The kids were not in school, but last few months, the kids have started coming to school. Clearly, it's the first in the country solution, and we partnered along with different players within the TCS ecosystem as well as the larger ecosystem of the government setup. And we've been working constantly on innovating on new ideas around bringing in different AI algorithms to be able to specifically look at these things. And the challenges are not very easy to solve because you can imagine the toilets are non-standard. You'll go to one place to another, there would be variations and things like that. So training the entire AI algorithms is difficult. But clearly, there is an exponential value that we have been able to deliver through this by demonstrating the purpose-driven AI as such. We've also got recognized for this innovation, the way we have actually implemented this. NASSCOM and various other organizations have recognized this. And you can watch the Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister and his team even seeing the demos, talking about it in their events and things like that. So very clearly, it is something which we have delivered as a high impact. So I wanted to tell you this story because it is very important to appreciate the aspect of what is there tomorrow. And there is some amazing work happening across India in improving the public school infrastructure. And I've been hearing stories from states like Delhi and other places where there have been some amazing transformation that is happening. And this aspect, especially when I talked about inclusive, scalable, and sustainable development, this story is an actual representation of that entire continuum that I talked about. It is inclusive because it is taking care of all the type of schools, especially the public schools, where probably in most cases it is the most neglected setup. It is scalable. As I said, it is using digital technologies which can scale up infinitely. It can go up to the India level. It can be taken up global, has the ability to scale. And sustainability is driven through the entire ecosystem of change that we have been driven. So it's not about just deploying a technology. There is a clear-cut ownership from the parents, from the school stakeholders, from the administration, either from the health side or from the education side, and also the involvement of the chief minister himself in this entire process. So overall, this is really what we are talking about: the information technology and the talent, which is the teams that have been working on this entire program, driving what India would be tomorrow. A very small thing, a very small story, but it has a very profound impact in the way we look at how India would shape itself. And keep in mind that talent that we are losing every year because of dropouts, if they come into the mainstream, they continue, our ability to actually build up a next generation talent pool, and you can drive a lot of things in a very, very inclusive manner, would make a lot of difference. So I will, given this very interesting story, and again, this story has been very close to my heart. We have been talking about it. We have been, I have been interacting with the Maharashtra Education Commissioner and his team, sharing with him the potential of replicating this entire setup. We've made a presentation to the Principal Scientific Advisor's Office and the knowledge clusters that have been set up. We have done a presentation to that group so that they appreciate the potential that it has. I have also presented it to the United Nations Asia Pacific region head and her team, so that we can look at this as a potential UN initiative on sanitation taking up at a global level. So all in all, this is really a very high impact story. The solution as such is very simple, but it uses a lot of technology behind itself. The AI-powered solutions that we have, which my teams have been building, have been able to make a very significant impact. So what I thought was, take a step back. Let us look at some other stories, some other areas where I have seen impact being made with information technology. And it is aligned to the Digital India Charter that has been laid out. And here are different stories across different areas, what people have been doing in their individual capacity, how people have been using technology to transform certain areas, and they are having social impact as well as business impact. So I thought, let me talk about these stories. And these are, I'll talk about them at a very high level. There's a lot of detail available on these stories. So this is the first story about Pratima Joshi of Shelter Associates. She uses Google Maps and various geocoding technologies to map the smallest of dots on the city that they are working at, and their focus has been to look at converting slums into housing societies for the poor. That's very interesting. If you actually ask a person living in the slum, what is your address? You would not be able to get a very specific address where things can be delivered to that person. Uh, when they order something, let's say a person staying in this particular slum, which you can see on this chart, orders something from a Zomato or from an Amazon. Do you know that the persons from Amazon or Zomato actually will come to a particular point which is outside the boundaries of this particular area, and then the person from the slum has actually to walk to that place and get that. Very rarely these places are motorable, and people don't even find it difficult to be able to identify where these are. There are various newer technologies which have been invented by Google, and what Pratima is doing is actually using those technologies in driving a toilets program for the slums and giving them that empowerment, their ability, rather than having community toilets, to look at having individual toilets and things like that. And they've done some amazing work using technology. And she has been working for the last 25 years, an architect by profession. She's taken and made it a mission in urban slums, and how you can actually make their quality of living better with the type of solutions. And it's a completely data driven program that they have. They have been collecting this data uh, in partnerships with the municipal corporations. They have done it in the city of Pune, in Navi Mumbai, in Kolhapur, and a few other locations. So very clearly using technology to drive transformation in the city. The second story I want to talk about is what some of my colleagues in IEEE Pune section have been doing in the field of agriculture. And this is something which they have been working over the last 3 to 4 years, where they are using digital technologies, IT, innovation, in coming up with very interesting solutions for the marginal farmers. And the topic of affordable agriculture is also to keep in mind that many of the farmers today struggle because they don't know how to use technology, or the technology is not very affordable. And this particular effort has been to create a complete ecosystem using digital technologies, using the knowledge and expertise of students of engineering college. And we have within the Pune section, we have about 10 affordable agriculture labs in our some of our student branch colleges, and they are participating in various innovations which are with the objective of solving some very specific problems of the farmers in some of the most affected areas in the state of Maharashtra. So they're using technologies like Internet of Things, edge analytics, image analytics, using open data and various other things to deliver some very interesting projects. We also help them incubate their ideas and have partnered along with two incubation cells, so that if their ideas are promising, they can be guided into shaping up that into a startup. The next initiative that I wanted to talk about is something which the Ministry of Urban Development is driving, and this is specifically the mission director for smart cities, Mr. Kunal Kumar, has been driving for the last few years, and his focus has been predominantly on open data and usage of data which is from the cities. There are about 110 cities across India, and each of these cities have a designated city data officer, and this city data officer's responsibility is to look at classifying the data which is there within the city as open data and give it to people who could potentially work on that data innovate and come up with various ideas about what and how you can solve the problems of the city. We have been working very closely through IEEE Pune section, through the Pune Knowledge Cluster, as well as through the TCS experts in finding out some very interesting use cases with this open data. There is also a very interesting initiative that the Tata Trust have been running along with the Smart Cities mission. And they have come up with a complete framework around the entire maturity of the smart cities and how they could potentially benchmark the cities against each other, against the best in class in the world, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of effort which is going on in this particular area where technology and open data is playing a very interesting role. And we do see that in a very significant way as the adoption of various things happen. Could be 5G infrastructure, could be urban mobility, or look at sustainable or green mobility and things like that. We will definitely see a lot more opportunities that could come up for people in bringing in newer areas of technology into play. I will talk about some of the transformative stuff that we have been doing as TCS in the overall infrastructure, more from a financial services point of view. And I'm sure most of you have seen the transformation that India has seen in probably two phases. One, post the demonetization, when suddenly the digital transactions increased. And after the lockdowns, which happened during the pandemic, that really saw a very big spike in the way the financial transactions would happen across the country. And to build an infrastructure of this nature, which could carry this entire financial transactions, has been a mammoth task. And our teams have been working day and night. This is one of the teams which probably has not really got that amount of recognition, but India ran on the infrastructure that has been built over the years, and especially in the recent times, on its scalability and its resilience. And hats off to my colleagues in TCS who are very closely working day and night on enabling this. The next one is on Ayushman Bharat, and there is a lot of effort which is going on in transforming the health infrastructure in India, and specifically for the underprivileged families. And there are various things which are happening in the process of registration, the entire authorization, the entire process of getting treatment, and things like that. Again, this has been another very proud moment for us, enabling and building up the entire health infrastructure. So the reason I'm giving you these examples is a very diverse set of transformations that are happening in India, enabled by information technology. And this is all being developed and built by people in India, young experts, innovators who are driving this. So you can clearly see the IT plus IT in each of these examples. The Indian Post, and I'm sure that many of you have probably not even visited a post office, but slowly and steadily we are transforming the post offices. We are transforming the experience that you could get in a postal service. Today, before a postman delivers you something, you could potentially get an SMS. You can actually track it. You can get a reschedule done and all of that stuff. You probably see a lot of that transformation. And if you look at what a post office used to be, it used to be a place which didn't have that type of a user interface to the people. The experience was not that great. But we learned a lot from some of the work that we have done elsewhere and brought in some of this transformation. So I'm sure that as you see the post office transformation happening, you definitely know who to thank. The Aadhaar infrastructure is another great example, and it's probably very unique, very different. Everybody envies the way we have scaled up the Aadhaar infrastructure, and over the years, this has played a very crucial role in validating, authenticating individuals. I'm sure that when we have all done an account opening, or we have done a new mobile SIM card, or in recent times vaccination, everything has been enabled with the Aadhaar authentication, and they continuously are looking at improvements and innovation. And One of the innovations that you'll see is that you'll see a lot of facial recognition technologies being deployed instead of the fingerprint based recognition which was happening. So there's a lot of things happening in this particular space. Again, I'm sure many of you have visited the Passport Seva Kendra. This was a transformation program that TCS has led for the last decade plus and completely transformed the experience of issuance of a passport. This particular setup has scaled up over the years, and I have been very closely associated with it because I used to run the business unit which would provide the services at these Passport Seva Kendra, and every transaction for them was an opportunity to learn. Every failure was an opportunity to learn and innovate and improve upon. And it was such a heightened continuous improvement process that within a very few number of cycles, they completely transformed this entire journey of issuance of a passport. Again, at the back end is technology which is very robust. Keep in mind that issuance of a passport is something which is very, very highly secure. There is a risk of potential duplicates and forgery and various other things. It requires a significant amount of control in the way things get issued. So a lot of technology and innovation goes into building up some of this type of systems. A couple of examples very close to the city of Pune, where we actually built some very innovative solutions, building and partnering along with the setups like ISER and the Pune Municipal Corporation, and using digital twin technologies to actually create a digital twin for the city of Pune to model our COVID cases and the entire trends that we were seeing. And we were able to create a very interesting and very effective model to predict the type of cases, the type of things which were happening. And I remember that once when we started, we were not even having good quality data. Data was all broken. We did not have the right type of sources. Each of the departments had their own data, and we had to actually work with them, help build the data infrastructure initially, and then build up this digital twin. And we were able to predict some of these changes about what if you lock down X, or what if you change the lockdown strategy, when would you potentially have a wave coming up and things like that. So very interesting thing. And again, we have taken this solution to the smart cities mission and potentially looking at how we can actually use the same thing for other activities, could be related to traffic management, to energy management, to many other cases which could be very effective. A very interesting solution that my teams deployed about a year and a half back. If you are aware, a cost of a COVID testing was close to about 3,500 to 5,000 rupees, because we were importing a lot of these COVID testing kits. And it was not very easy to get a COVID test done. And to get the indigenization done in a very short time period required us to deploy certain solutions. We worked with the principal scientific advisor and created the platform which is called Index, which is indigenization of the diagnostics. And the data marketplace platform that my teams had built was deployed in a very short time window. And we were able to create a complete ecosystem of the supply side and the demand side of people or the organizations which were actually building components or consuming these testing kits. So again, these innovations and technology innovations have come up, at a very rapid pace during the pandemic, and it has created us a lot of opportunities and very optimistic roadmap for us to see how things will scale up in the future. And the last one, and which is, I think, it is awe-inspiring. If you go anywhere in the world, you can very proudly say the type of transformation we have seen in deploying the vaccination program. I was very closely involved with the thinking process initially. And when some of the experts were discussing this about the vaccine program rollout, looking at the scale, looking at the type of diversity and the type of challenges we had in the country, we felt it would probably take 2 to 3 years to roll out this program. We are yet to complete the first year, we started beginning of 2021, rolling out the vaccination in a limited way just to the health workers and at high risk folks. And then subsequently started it with the senior citizens, then 45 plus years and things like that. In a short time period, in a year, we are close to 150 crore vaccination doses done. And it wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have that technology backbone. So hats off to the entire Arogya Setu Cowin applications that have been built by the people in the very short time window, and everything is to very proudly show my colleagues in the US and in UK that look, everything is digitized. We don't even have to have a single paper in hand. Everything is available digitally for us to review and submit, and it's the entire authentication, the mobile SMS based validation and things like that. It's a phenomenal experience that we have seen, and that for me is really India tomorrow. So examples like these, there are many examples like these. And about 3 years back, I had run a very interesting initiative along with my teams to capture some of these stories. And it was relatively a narrow scope where we were looking at how people were using data and analytics very effectively in driving social transformation. And there is this publication. You may look up Parivartana and TCS. You just Google these two words, and you will find this entire publication online. You can download it and take a look at these stories. But we learned a lot from these amazing people who are doing this work, the type of impact that they were doing, the type of innovations that they were bringing, the talent that was playing a role in bringing in those innovations, the technology that was being used, and so on and so forth. So my next section is about the talent in India, and the focus is about building and nurturing the talent. So while we may have great ideas, great technology, at the end of it, we need to look at how are people building up this talent. And it is not about just the engineering talent. Mind you, the number of engineers which we are producing today is not necessarily sufficient for the world to consume. Remember, Indian talent is also internationally very valuable. So the type of potential that we have, and if you're able to nurture that talent, just that 23% girls who drop out, if we are able to cut that down to say a 2 to 5% instead of 23%, just think of what type of talent we'll be able to produce. But it's not about just doing some things at a mega level. It needs to also look at what is happening at a ground level. So I decided that let me put down some stories and some very interesting efforts that are going on. And I want to call out individuals because these are our heroes. These are the people who make a difference to the society, to the community, to the kids, to the aspirations of the kids. My first story is the work that Dr. G.S. Mani does in IEEE Pune section. And this is an initiative called Eureka, where he has, and it's not something which has been in recent times, it's been a sustained effort over the years. Initially, it used to be called technology dissemination of technology, with the students. It's evolved into a very interesting program where students across India, college students, become ambassadors of education. They take their technology ideas, or they talk about the latest in technology to school students. And these are schools, urban schools, rural schools, and they innovate in the way they actually make that topic very interesting. And the idea is to ensure that kids get interested in STEM education. If there are kids who are likely to drop out, they think again and say, look, if there is an interesting thing, maybe I should continue. So very interesting work. We recently concluded the Eureka event for 2021, and we had a phenomenal response across all the sections across India. My next story is about Ruchi Mathur, who is CEO of Lighthouse Community. It is a very interesting NGO which is focused on digital literacy. It is focused on helping build livelihood by means of skilling. And they largely focus on people who are in the city. If you look at when you go around the city, we really don't look around us as much as we should. And we don't necessarily know the type of people which are living in the city, because we only look at the high rise buildings. We look at the big communities and things like that. But there's large amount of population in the cities which live in slums, in areas which probably have a very dense population, and they don't have that level of opportunities. So Ruchi has been driving this in a very passionate manner to drive digital literacy first, and also to look at creating skilling programs for these youth. And they're largely in the 16 to 22-year category. And then creating partnerships with organizations so that these skilled people could actually get opportunities to be employed, or even become entrepreneurs in their own way. The third story is of Prashant Girbane, who is the Director General of NCCI. Prashant created a very interesting program, and he comes from the rural background in rural Maharashtra, in Marathwada region, and he himself found it very difficult to adjust and align towards the life of a person in a city. The basic things that he struggled with. He was one of the top students in his school, completed his chemical engineering from ICT, went on to do his management at IIM Ahmedabad. But he realized that people in rural India just don't have the connect about what happens in the city. And he created this very interesting program, to actually drive a digital rural connect in program, where the people in his village could connect with people in the cities and get a perspective around what's really happening, so that that individual who potentially moves to the city, or at least wants to leverage the expertise that is there in the city, is able to do a very effective job. Prashant, in his role as Director General of MCCI, also does some very interesting things, including entrepreneurship for women, creating a complete directory for various institutions which are there as part of the Chamber of Commerce and things like that. So uses technology in a big way. But I thought I should bring out this particular aspect, because this is real inclusive way of ensuring that the people who may not necessarily have that access is provided that type of an access. My next story is Dr. M.G. Dev. Dr. M.G. Dev is a renowned oncologist. He retired from Tata Medical Hospital, has been doing phenomenal work in the area of getting Adivasi students, and this is in some of the remotest of areas in Maharashtra. And I have had amazing discussions with Dr. Dev, and he tells me that, look, we generally talk urban and rural, but we just don't look at things beyond it. And there is a significant amount of population, the Adivasi population, which is beyond that. And it is not a trivial number. It is in hundreds of millions that this population exists in the tribal belt. And I have also interacted with Professor Anil Gupta, who is in IIM Ahmedabad, and both of them share a similar passion for looking at the tribal belt in addition to the rural belt. And he has been tapping and nurturing these talent in the Adivasi children. And he has a setup, and this setup obviously was running till very recently. And during the pandemic, they couldn't scale it up, so they have handed it over to one of the institutions. But it's a very interesting work of being very inclusive, not just to the urban and the rural, but also going beyond and looking at the tribal belt, and which I feel is a very interesting component of the society. The next story is about Rupa Purushottamam, who runs a very interesting academy. This academy is for girl childs. They have kids, girls from the class 7th to 12th, and their focus is on building women leaders. It's not about just educating them, but to inspire them, give them that opportunity so that they become leaders of the future. And it's very important, as that percentage of women dropout or the girl dropouts reduces over the years, you will not be able to sustain it till they have women leaders. If they don't have anybody to look up to, they don't have role models, then their ability to actually aspire and do something interesting will always hit the glass ceiling, as they call it. And this initiative is again very interesting as far as talent is concerned. Story of Pradeep Lokhande, again, a very interesting person. Uh, about 30 years that Pradeep Bhau has been running this effort. He has a small company called Rural Relations. He connects with villages across India, and he started his connections with them in a simplest of manners, just by using a 15 paise postcard. And I'm sure those of you who are my age will be able to relate to it. We used to get these postcards, 15 paise postcards. So he actually started connecting with the headmaster, the postmaster, and the sarpanch of every village across India using a postcard. And he has actually built a database of various of these villages, created a hierarchy of these villages. They have some things called feeder villages, and then he has used this data very effectively to ensure that he can create data about the villages, and he's created various knowledge pages and knowledge repositories which can potentially benefit these kids. And he has been talking about the work that he does. So do look up Pradeep Lokhande and his TED talk. Amazing personality and amazing impact that he's creating. Another interesting person, and all of these people I am sharing with you, I'm sure every one of you will have a story to tell about somebody. And the reason I want to call out these people is that when we talk about Indian talent is not just thriving on just the larger infrastructure which is getting created. There are many such people who are making a difference to the country, and hence I want to ensure that there is opportunity created. We support some of these people. We look out for such people, and I would encourage that IEEE as an organization, given the network that we have, are able to tap into these people and support them in whatever way we can. So Ajinkya Kulkarni and his father, they run a very interesting NGO, and they have been focusing on creating science centers across the state of Maharashtra. They have a very large network of these science centers. They're relatively small science centers, but it creates the inquisitiveness, the interest in the kids around science and technology, and it is playful in nature. That in you, it's not like you go to a science center and most of the things you can't touch. They are all in showcases and things like that. Here are science centers where you can actually play. You can actually see how a pendulum can be swung. You can see how a water coming down a slope will generate electricity, and stuff like that. So an amazing set of activities that are being done by Ajinkya. So let me, while I talked about it in the context of individuals and the type of impact that they're making, I thought it will also good to call about uh, industry and how industry is playing a role in this entire journey. And I thought it will be good to start off with talking about the Tata Group itself, because we have been in business for over 153 years, and we have made very significant amount of investments in transforming education, be it some of the top institutes, the IISC being among the foremost one, the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, various of these organizations. We played a very significant role in setting them up and enabling the needs of the country. And the Tata Trusts have been playing a very crucial role in spreading the education net. One of the biggest focus areas of investments that we do through the trust is around the education. We've been supporting the education net across the Indian setup, across the different schools, the type of transformation that we are driving and scaling it up in a big way. The National Skill Development Corporation came up with very interesting programs, and as its responsibility, Tata Group decided to create a entity called Tata Stripe, which is primarily focused on enabling the right skilling of the students who are graduating, but they are not necessarily industry ready or not employable, or they cannot start off something on their own because there are certain skills which are missing. We have launched this setup over the last few years. We've scaled up and made an impact to almost 5 lakh lives over the last few years. And there are various models like these which have come up, and the example that I gave of Ruchi Mathur very much falls into a similar category like this. Let me, in 5 minutes, give a view of the other things which are happening to nurture this talent. A lot of effort and investments have gone into the entire TCS Ion digital learning ecosystem. Today, we have mechanisms to actually do assessments, to do examinations and various other things at a scale that is just unimaginable. The fact that you have the IIT JEE or the CAT exams and various other things run on this platform, and we have been able to do it very innovatively, even during the lockdowns and things like that, using AI, various other technologies. But these are infrastructure; these are things which are important for us to nurture and ensure that we are spending the right amount of technology investments in these areas. When we have innovators, we also need to look at how do we nurture those innovators? How do you nurture those change makers? So we have what is called the Digital Impact Square set up in Nasik, which is an incubator, but incubator in a very different way. We incubate startups which have their end objective of making social impact. And social innovation is a big focus, and we do it in collaboration with MIT as well as the administration at Nasik. And we have a global selection, rather India-wide selection process. It's not about just technologists. We have designers, we have various skills which come together to create these solutions. There are very interesting projects that they come up with. We've been focusing on looking at empowering entrepreneurs in various parts of India, and specifically the rural areas. There are a lot of people, you've probably noticed, especially in the lockdown, there are people who had products, but they didn't know how to create a channel to sell them. They were not digitally enabled and digitally literate in some sense to actually use technology. So we have been working with this setup. So the talent is there, but talent also needs to be digitally enabled in the larger infrastructure, and hence the competency that needs to be built for these people is a very important aspect. Apart from just educating, it's also important to, on technology side of education, it's also important to be very conscious about a very important factor, and that is climate risk. And we very recently launched TCS Sustainathon, which is a platform to encourage young minds to come together and work on solving problems of cities that we live in. So we recently did a program in the city of Pune. IEEE was one of the strategic partners for this initiative, and we partnered along with the focus for this was waste management. And we had challenge partners in form of the Pune Municipal Corporation, the other Poonawalla Clean City Initiative, as well as Swachh, which is an NGO focused in the area of waste management. And the idea was to bring in a large number of students in colleges and in schools to participate. One, they would become aware through this process about the challenges which are there, about the challenges which have been tabled out here. At the same time, they will be able to come up with bright ideas, and then we could incubate those ideas and take them to fruition. So very interesting process. About 3,300 students actually participated in this. We had some amazing senior leaders, including Dr. Mashelkar. We had our Vice Chancellor from Pune University, Dr. Karmalkar. We had our Rajya Sabha MP, Vandana Chavan, the TCS CTO and the CMO are very closely involved. And we had a very good team of technologists, experts who are aware of the specific problems and validating the solutions which came up. So the reason I wanted to talk about this is we want to create talent, not just who are technologically good, but also who are conscious about the fact that they have to build a sustainable future. They have to be aware of climate risk, and they have to be aware of various challenges that we are faced with in current times. So conclude, I would like to call out that India tomorrow beckons us, and IEEE is in probably the best position today to make an impact in this particular area. And I strongly believe that we all can play a very significant role in the journey of building the India of tomorrow. And I want to take inspiration from a couple of books which I have found to be very, very pertinent, very relevant. The first book is written by Dr. Mashelkar and Ravi Pandit. It is called Leapfrogging to Pole Vaulting. And Dr. Mashelkar has been advocating some very interesting topics, especially around Gandhian engineering, on MLM, which is less is more, and things like that. So a lot of things which is more for less for more. That is the agenda that he has been driving, and he's given quite a few talks around it. And this particular story is about how digital India can not just do a leapfrog, but do a pole vault. And that for us is very important. That when we talk about India tomorrow, it is not about just doing some incremental change and things like that. It is about delivering 150 crore vaccinations in less than a year. That's the type of pole vault we are really looking at. And the other book I want to call out is what our chairman N. Chandra and Rupa have written, called Digital Nation. And this is all about bridging that gap between what is needed in form of technology, and it's largely people that we have, and how do we upskill those people, especially in the book talks about the education sector and the healthcare sector. And Chandra himself has been a very strong technology leader, was the CEO of TCS, has worked with some of the best companies and enabling them on technology. And he strongly believes that India can become the AI capital of the world. And I strongly feel that we as experts in some of these areas can absolutely make a big difference in this journey. So that's all from my side. I strongly believe that this is India's century, and it is for us technologists, for us leaders, for us people who are in the field of education, in the field of technology, in the field of nurturing and building up talent. We can make a big difference in building the India of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Dina, for taking us through these beautiful stories. We live and breathe information technology. And of course, we are aware of Indian talent also, but rarely we get together to talk of India tomorrow. And more importantly, also stories of India today, which are already making an impact. The simplicity of the solutions are key to the scalability and sustainability aspect, along with the speed and superiority. I see questions in the box, so let us take a couple of them. At the interest of time, I will just quickly read out them to you. The first question is, what are the opportunities a student can see in various initiatives taken by Indian government with TCS in 2 years' time? How a student academic faculty can contribute for the same?
So interesting question. We actually ran two workshops very recently in the Pune section. Since I run the industry relations activities in Pune, I looked at how academia and research related activities can be taken to the next level with the partnerships with industry. And I think that's the opportunity that we should really look at. We should look at partnerships. We should look at working along with the best from an industry perspective, and bring in innovative ideas to solve specific problems. How can you actually participate? As I mentioned, there are various things which are happening in each of those areas, examples and stories that I talked about. You need to go out and look for those problems out there. The smart city mission is one of the best opportunities if you are living in the cities. There are various other things which are happening, be it around weather patterns, be it around agriculture. And there's a lot of open data out there, and the opportunity for you to pick up a particular area. And the reason my second part of my talk was giving you the breadth of it was to give you a pointer towards some of these areas. So there are various things which are there, and I'm sure each of the IEEE sections and various societies that we have the chapters for can take the lead and participate in it. A student branch can potentially work together and identify a particular area. So as I mentioned, there are 10 of our student branches which have incubated and have been running the affordable agriculture lab. They have picked up an area, and it is up to the students. I interact with the students very regularly and ask them, what do you want? What do you should be doing? And the TCS Sustainathon that I mentioned in Pune that happened came in through my interactions with all our student representatives, and they said we want to do something on sustainability. And I said, look, we have a platform like this in our Singapore setup. We will bring it to Pune, and that's how it happened. So I think students should look out for opportunities like these, and you don't have to limit yourself to only TCS. There are many other organizations. You look up their website and look up what all they are doing as far as their purpose is concerned for the community, for the society, and you'll find the areas where you can potentially work on that.
Thanks, Dina. Another question for you. What is your speculation of the skill set needed 5 years down the line to a student or faculty? This comes from a computer science student.
I think the biggest skill you would require is learnability. The way the things are changing at such a fast pace, your ability to learn new things at a pace which you never even thought about would play a very crucial role. The other thing is, if you think you can do everything yourself, that type of things, the individualistic approach will never work. It is all about collaboration. It is about partnerships. So you need to learn about how to build things up. And third is, there is a considerable amount of reuse. There is a lot of things which are there. You don't need to start doing things from scratch. When I started my career, we used to start off pretty much on scratch to start doing things. Now you can just identify a particular data set, look at all of these Python libraries, and use, you have the infrastructure available on cloud. You can look at using some of these things. So you can actually get started off the block at a speed that is amazing. And if some things new come up, you should have the ability to learn it very quickly and adapt to it. And I think that is important. And I have been in the area of data. So I tell people that, invariably, any area, any technology, any area that you work on, if you're a computer science graduate, or if you're a mechanical engineer or a civil engineer, digital technologies is here for all of us. It is not only for the computer science or the IT category students, and our president-elect, I was listening to his talk yesterday at one of the inaugural events of PuneCon, and he said, make IEEE your professional home. And he said, we have stopped expanding the IEEE, and it is for everybody. It is for everybody who uses digital technologies and technologies for the future. So to answer your question in a very long way, but keep this aspect in mind, that learnability is very crucial.
Thank you, Dina. Ruchika, over to you. If there are any questions from the room, or we are over the time, I know. So over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. There is no more questions, and thank you so much, Dina sir, for this amazing and insightful deliberations. We got to know so many things. Personally, I will that many of the initiative is taken care by TCS. One of them is Aadhaar. Many of things I did not know, which I now know, and looking forward to personally to Indian Post retransmission in upcoming years. So thank you for a wonderful session. So now with this day ends, and I wrap up all the sessions for the day, and I request all the audience and the attendees and the delegates, please join us tomorrow 9 a.m. with the keynote 3. So have a safe stay, have a good night. Thank you so much. Thank you for Alco team for being there seamlessly to make the session wonderful. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.